The White House is on defense after suffering a setback in the Summit of the Americas. Some leaders now saying they're boycotting the gathering, which kicks off Wednesday in Los Angeles after Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua were not invited by the Biden administration. Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador saying there cannot be a summit if all countries are not invited. Kelly O'Donnell joins us now from the White House. Kelly, migration is the key issue at this summit, but the presidents of Honduras and Mexico aren't attending. How much of a shadow is that going to cast, and is that going to be a problem for the Biden administration?
Well, it is certainly awkward, and it is something the White House has to deal with. But the argument that the White House is making is the U.S., as the host of this summit, has control over the invitation list, and they believe that this should be a summit of democracies in the Americas, and they don't believe that dictators should be included. So Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua are not included, and they have been preparing for this kind of backlash from other leaders. There's no question that having an important partner, especially Mexico, with all of the relationships on so many levels, migration, economics, the cultural issues between the U.S. and Mexico, to not have the Mexican president attend is certainly not what President Biden wanted. Officials here tell me they were given advance notice of the fact that the Mexican president would announce today that he would not be attending. The Honduran president also said she would not be attending, and there may be some other reverberations. But the White House says that they believe it is worth the fallout to try to set that value. But as you point out, if you're going to talk about issues like migration, the economy, it'll also get into climate and COVID. How do you not have all those players at the table? And this is the kind of summit. It doesn't happen every year. It has been 28 years since the United States has been host. And there have been other times when these other nations have been included, but not this year. And so there may be a political price for the White House to pay, but one they say they are willing to. Also something to consider to try to sort of smooth this out. The Mexican president and his wife will be invited to come to the White House in July. So this isn't a rift that they think is going to be long term, but it will cast a shadow over the summit and the president as host, with the vice president also playing a big role because she, of course, is from California. Gotti?
And Kelly, as the White House press secretary said, migration and climate crisis are the top two priorities for the summit. So with a lot of countries skipping out on this, can we expect any sort of framework or any sort of concrete plans to come out of all this?
Well, one of the things that happens behind the scenes is that you will have other government officials at a level below the president or prime minister level who will be participating. And advisors here say, using the sort of talk of diplomacy, that there will be deliverables. There will be announcements that they plan to make as these leaders gather. There will be 68 delegations participating, 23 heads of government, so presidents or prime ministers in attendance. So they expect to have some substantive things to talk about in the area, especially of migration. But will it make a difference that certain leaders are not attending? Because it's about diplomacy, the optics do matter, and it does have an impact. But the president, the White House, says that they want to emphasize these democratic values and not having three dictatorships represented at a summit the U.S. is hosting is a balance they're willing to try to take that risk politically by doing this.
Now to the issue frustrating most Americans every day. Gas prices soaring yet again to another record, nearing an average of $5 a gallon. Miguel Almaguer on the devastating ripple effect on families and businesses.
Tonight, as our nation accelerates past record prices at the pump,
gas prices they're killing us.
Americans nationwide are suffering sticker shock as they empty their pockets to fill up their tanks.
It just took me $150 to fill up my tank.
The U.S. today reaching another historic high for a gallon of gas, averaging $4.86. But that would be a bargain in California, where drivers at one gas station are asked to shell out nearly $10 a gallon, with the state average here of $6.34.
We're spending roughly like maybe $500 every 2 weeks for gas. Ready?
Outside Los Angeles, Justin Lira already used a full tank of gas today, driving his pregnant wife to the hospital, and says finances for their growing family are tight.
I'm trying to get a second job, especially my wife being pregnant. We just want to stay home and not drive as much.
With 10 states already averaging more than $5 a gallon, the constant drip of price increases has fueled a 59-cent climb from just a month ago. Some motorists say the pinch at the pump could drive them to vote for change.
I try not to follow all the politics, but I'm starting to now because of everything.
Amid worry gas prices could help fuel a recession, the trickle-down effect impacts nearly everything purchased, shipped, and delivered.
Prices for everything are going up, whether it's a bag of cookies or a bag of chips.
Every item in the store has basically gone up.
At online grocer Yummy.com, customers are spending more for less.
Our vendors have increased our transportation costs, and those increases are passed on ultimately to the customers, like gas at the gas station.
Tonight, the pain at the pump, squeezing Americans at the gas station and well beyond.
And Miguel joins us from Los Angeles tonight, where those staggering prices are on the rise. Miguel, what's the forecast here for fuel costs coming down the road?
Well, it certainly doesn't look good, at least not right now, Gotti. We're told that there's still high demand for gas, so that's going to keep these prices stubbornly high. You can see behind me we're over at $7 a gallon in parts of Los Angeles. That's likely going to persist for the near future. At least that's what experts say as of now. Gotti?
Miguel, thank you. For more on where gas prices are headed and if we could see relief soon, I want to bring in Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. At this point, are there any good options left for government officials in terms of lowering gas prices and giving consumers a break?
Well, thanks for having me. And there's not a whole lot that there's left. Now, certainly the federal government may be able to waive gasoline taxes. We've seen some states implementing gas tax holidays. Of course, the cost is that you could actually push demand up by bringing prices down. Beyond that, the president still could choose to issue waivers to allow winter gasoline to be sold in the summer months. Of course, there's pollution costs to that as summer temperatures heat the atmosphere, but that could save some Americans 20 to 50 cents a gallon. Beyond that, obviously, we're seeing a run-up in demand as the economy mends from COVID and simply not enough oil supply. And we've also lost refineries over the last few years, and that is also pushing gas prices up.
And we also heard there in Miguel's piece, the national average nearing $5 per gallon today. From what you're seeing, have these record prices meant drivers are starting to change their driving habits?
Well, in pretty small ways so far. Now, during Memorial Day, we didn't see much evidence that there was demand destruction. That is, people weren't necessarily staying home compared to the weeks prior. But I would say, given the high price of fuel, it does seem like less Americans hit the road for Memorial Day. Now, this week, we are seeing decreases from last week's consumption. Gas Buddy data shows the national consumption or national demand for gasoline fell by a little over 2% last week. It's hard to know or draw conclusions that that is simply from high prices, but the suspicion is that we are indeed seeing more of that demand destruction brought on by the high price of gas.
So a decrease in consumption, does that mean that drivers could possibly expect to see a decrease in gas prices anytime soon?
Well, I think a lot would need to happen first. Demand would have to fall below certain levels where it is now. That would allow gasoline inventories to start building once again back up to maybe what are called healthier levels. But right now, gasoline inventories are at their lowest seasonal level since 2014. So it would be a good sign that demand falls. That would then have to precipitate supply starting to rise. Then that could push prices back down.
Patrick, thank you. There's growing concern tonight over monkeypox in the United States. More cases are being reported, and the CDC is now saying they appear to come from 2 different outbreaks. NBC's Stephen Romo explains.
Tonight, new concerns over the monkeypox outbreak. CDC officials have traced 2 versions of monkeypox now circulating in the U.S.
While they're similar to each other, their genetic analysis shows that they're not linked to each other.
New data from the CDC shows New York with 7 cases, California with 6, and Florida with 4. 2 of the cases in the U.S. were found to be genetically similar to that of a Texas man who traveled to Africa last year. The other known cases resemble the genetic signature of the outbreak of cases found in Europe.
They're both happening simultaneously, which I think reflects the fact that we've let monkeypox be out of control in Africa for an extended period of time.
Doctors explain that these are not variants in the way we think of mutating COVID-19 variants. Instead, these two monkeypox varieties are simply different members of the same family, each marked by symptoms including fever, headache, muscle aches, and exhaustion, along with the development of a distinct rash, often beginning with the face and then spreading to other parts of the body. It can spread when a person comes in contact with an infected animal or human.
That virus likely began to spread through person-to-person, close contact, possibly intimate or sexual contact.
Those who study viruses say the window is closing on possible intervention. A Yale epidemiologist suggesting LGBTQ organizations are the secret weapon here due to a current prevailing theory that at least some of the current spread started with attendees of LGBTQ plus events in Europe.
The more people that get infected, the harder it becomes logistically to be able to get to all those contacts and vaccinate them in order to stop forward transmission.
Experts say focusing on vaccinations in outbreak hotspots like Africa is the answer.
So it really argues for really putting resources, not just at containing this in Europe, in the United States, and in Canada, but also to be putting efforts into vaccinating people in endemic countries so that we don't have this reservoir to spill into other countries.
The U.S. currently has more than 36,000 doses of the vaccine Jynneos immediately available and has asked the manufacturer, Bavarian Nordic, to send 36,000 more. In the meantime, the CDC recommends using good hand hygiene, especially after contact with infected animals or humans.
People should not be surprised to see the numbers increase for some time, but it's still not something that poses a general risk to the public.
And Stephen Romo joins us now from the studio. Stephen, a lot of people are watching this and they are wondering, what are the chances of this becoming as widespread as COVID-19?
Very concerning, of course, whenever you hear something about a virus coming right after we've dealt with so many COVID cases. The short answer is there's really no reason to have that type of COVID concern that we would with monkeypox virus. For one thing, there is already a vaccine available. There's no development lag right now. There's something that's called ring vaccination. When there is someone who has a confirmed case, authorities will vaccinate the people immediately around that person to try to isolate them and protect the people around them to prevent the spread. So right now we just have more tools in the toolkit than we did with COVID, and also COVID is airborne and monkeypox is most often transmitted through touch. So a lot of differences right now. A reason to pay attention to it right now, but no reason for the concern that we have with COVID.
A little bit of reassurance, but still a lot of concern. Moving overseas in England, Prime Minister Boris Johnson breathing a sigh of relief tonight after he survived a vote of no confidence brought on by members of his own party over his behavior and his leadership. NBC's Stephanie Gosk is there with late details.
Tonight, Boris Johnson, the controversial British Prime Minister, lives to see another day, surviving his own Conservative Party's vote to oust him, 211 to 148. Nearly 60% of the party still believes in him.
What we're going to do now is take the opportunity to unite and deliver.
Johnson has been under fire for months over a series of parties held by his staff during the height of COVID, accused of breaking rules about gatherings that his own government put in place.
I have been repeatedly assured since these allegations emerged that there was no party and that no COVID rules were broken.
But then a report released last month said, in fact, he and his staff did break the rules. And there are pictures. These are from the PM's birthday in 2020, and also from a colleague's farewell party during the country's second lockdown. The report concluded the senior leadership must bear responsibility for events that should not have been allowed. Johnson later acknowledging the findings and pledging to do better.
I take full responsibility for everything that took place on my watch.
Earlier today, we caught up with a Conservative member of Parliament.
Hasn't he already lost too many Conservative MPs to be able to function going forward?
No leader ever has 100% support.
But a recent survey says 59% of Brits want the Prime Minister gone. At the Queen's Jubilee service, crowds greeted Johnson with a mix of cheers and boos.
The Prime Minister is now protected from another no-confidence vote for a year, but keep in mind, 40% of his party has turned against him, and that could make governing very difficult. Gotti?
Stephanie, thank you. Now to the war in Ukraine. Russian assaults in the east intensifying as Ukraine waits for long-range rockets from both the U.S. and the U.K. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces refuse to give up any ground and claiming a Russian helicopter was shot down earlier today. Richard Engel is there.
Ukrainian forces claim they shot down this Russian helicopter in eastern Ukraine today. But unlike before, losses on the battlefield are not slowing Russia's assault. Miro Popovich, a Ukrainian American who served in the U.S. military, says the fighting now in the east is the most intense he's seen by far.
It looks like their soldiers are never ending. We keep wiping them away, and they bring more.
Are Ukrainian troops going to be able to hold on to this area out in the east?
You know, I think so. I hope so. They are pushing, but we are strong as well. Plus, we got the support equipment from Lend-Lease from the States.
Ukrainians are waiting for the multi-billion-dollar American package of aid and arms. The United States and the United Kingdom have already promised to supply rockets that can fire up to 50 miles. President Putin dismissed those weapons as inconsequential, but said if the West supplies longer-range weapons that threaten Russia, he would escalate. Perhaps to prove a point, Russia bombed Kyiv for the first time in weeks. This missile, shown flying low, believed to be part of the attack. Russia claims it destroyed Western weapons. Ukraine believed Russia was mainly sending a message.
The emerging battlefront now appears to be the Black Sea. The United States and NATO allies are working on a plan to escort Ukrainian ships carrying grain past a Russian naval blockade, potentially risking confrontation. Russian and Turkish officials are meeting about it this week. Gotti?
Richard, thank you. Still ahead tonight, a drowning outrage. A man ignoring police orders and jumping into an Arizona lake, but officers are now under fire for what happened next. Plus, the latest twist in a mystery surrounding a once prominent South Carolina attorney, why authorities are now exhuming the body of his former housekeeper. And major changes coming to the iPhone, the new tool to help domestic violence victims, and users will finally be able to erase those text messages that you might have sent by mistake. Stay with us. Back now with a story out of Arizona where officials have released a portion of Bodycam video that shows the moments before a man drowns after an encounter with police. Now, the video shows the man voluntarily going into the water, but it's what the officers did or didn't do after that is causing a massive outcry. NBC's Maggie Vespa has more.
Tonight, body cam footage capturing the moments leading up to last month's tragic drowning of a homeless man trying to avoid police. 34-year-old Sean Bickings died after jumping into a lake in Tempe, Arizona. The newly released video shows he ignored officers who told him he wasn't allowed in.
You're not allowed to swim in the lake.
The video also shows how officers didn't immediately attempt to help him out.
Pretty sure there's like turbines at the base of the dam that can suck him under the water.
The footage, edited by the police department, doesn't include the moments Bickings died, though a police transcript shows Bickings telling officers he was drowning. One told him to come back to the pylon. When Bickings said he can't, the transcript shows another officer replied, "I'm not coming in after you." Bickings continued to plead for help before slipping under the water, police say, moments later. In a news release, the city says authorities were called after an alleged fight between Bickings and his companion shortly after 5 a.m. on May 28th. The couple denied there had been a physical argument.
They didn't do nothing wrong. Okay. We just, we have the bad luck of interrupting each other sometimes.
The release says officers told the couple they were running their names through a database for outstanding warrants. Standard procedure, says the city. That's when video shows Bickings climbed over a 4-foot metal fence near Tempe Town Lake.
What are you doing, my friend?
According to the release, he swam about 30 to 40 yards, then began to struggle.
He jumped in the lake and his
trying to swim away.
Bicking's companion, who identified herself as Susan, also tried to jump in, according to the transcript, and one officer went to get a boat while police held Susan back. An officer telling her, "You need to chill out." Susan begged, telling officers, "I love him," adding, "He's drowning right in front of you and you won't help." Hours later, rescue teams pulled his body from the lake. Tempe police have not responded to a request for comment by NBC News. The city's press release calling the death a tragedy, noting Tempe's chief of police met with Bicking's mother last week to explain the story behind her son's death. A story captured on camera.
Maggie Vespa joins us now. Maggie, this video paints such an excruciating picture. The city has said that these were street cops, that they weren't equipped to do a water rescue. Still, could they face consequences?
Gotti, it seems like they could. 3 Tempe police officers, we should note, responded to that call in total. And the city isn't releasing their names, but they say they're on paid leave pending outside investigations by the Department of Public Safety and Scottsdale Police, an outside police department. That is customary in these types of incidents, we're told. Gotti.
Maggie, thank you. And now for the latest in a saga surrounding a former South Carolina attorney. Authorities now announcing the body of a former housekeeper for his family will be exhumed as part of the investigation. Our Vaughn Hilliard has that story.
Tonight, the housekeeper who died after falling on stairs outside the home of once prominent South Carolina attorney Alec Murdaugh is set to be exhumed. South Carolina authorities say they will recover and examine the body of Gloria Satterfield in the coming weeks as part of the ongoing investigation into her death 4 years ago.
The original police report called Gloria Satterfield's death natural, and no autopsy was performed.
This is the latest twist in a Southern saga involving a series of deaths of individuals close to Murdaugh in multiple indictments against the lawyer for financial fraud. Former South Carolina Attorney General Charlie Condon telling NBC News after Murdaugh's arrest in the fall,
it's just very difficult to see how he would not be serving a very long prison sentence.
At the time, the Murdaugh said her death was an accident and that she tripped over the family dogs and fell down the stairs. But now authorities are questioning the incident, her family alleging last fall that Murdaugh never paid them the $2 million he agreed to pay out to her estate as part of a settlement over her death at the family's home. Satterfield's family telling Craig Melvin on Dateline last fall,
"She felt like they were family. We thought they were family, think they are family."
What did Alec Murdaugh say to you after your mom died?
That he would, take care of us and stuff and kind of look out for us.
This all after last June when Murdaugh's wife, Maggie, and son Paul were found shot and killed. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division has suggested their deaths were homicides, but have made no arrests related to their killings. And just months later, Murdaugh's attorney alleging Murdaugh hired a hitman to kill Murdaugh himself so that his surviving son could collect his $10 million life insurance policy. That alleged scheme led to his arrest for insurance fraud. Murdaugh's attorney after his arrest for financial fraud saying,
"He has indicated clearly that he is going to try to right every wrong, financial wrong, and others that he may have committed. Look, he's reconciled to the fact he's going to prison."
The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division telling NBC News they received permission from a Satterfield estate lawyer to exhume her body and further investigate the circumstances of her death. We've reached out to the lawyer, but have not gotten a response.
Vaughn joins us now from the studio. Vaughn, so far just financial fraud charges, but are there any other charges coming down the pipeline?
Right. Alec Murdaugh, it's important to note, is yet to be charged with assault or murder. These are purely financial and insurance fraud charges. That said, when we're talking about the Satterfield family here and that multi-million-dollar settlement that was supposed to go to the Satterfield estate, there has been an agreement between Murdaugh's lawyer and the family estate for a $4.3 million resolution, essentially to hand that money over to the Satterfields while their mother's body is being exhumed. At this point in time, though, that's going to come down to a court-appointed receiver to actually make that transaction go through. And to this time, we have not been told whether that has happened or not.
Seems like layer after layer after layer.
It's a lot.
Thanks so much, Vaughn. And when we come back, chase on the water, how 2 boaters helped police in Florida stop a thief on a stolen jet ski. That's next. Back now with Top Stories news feed and new details in the search for a Texas fugitive accused of killing an elite cyclist. U.S. Marshals say their prime suspect, Caitlin Marie Armstrong, was dropped off at Newark Airport in New Jersey one day after police in Austin got an arrest warrant. However, no flight reservation was made in her name. Armstrong is accused of fatally shooting Anna Marie Wilson on May 11th. She flew to New York 3 days later. A $5,000 reward is being offered for information leading to her arrest. Now to a jet ski theft foiled on the water with a little help from some nearby boaters. Bodycam footage shows sheriff's deputies near Daytona Beach asking to use a couple's boat for a chase on the water. The deputies confronting the thief with weapons drawn, pulling the jet ski over to the boat to make that arrest. Both the boat and the jet ski were returned to their owners. And Apple unveiling some big changes to its software. If you ever sent a text and you didn't mean to, well, now iOS 16 will let users edit or even recall iMessages sent in error. The company also expanding personal safety features with a new tool, Safety Check, which will let people in dangerous relationships cut off all access given to another user with just one click. And Apple is debuting Apple Pay Later. It lets users pay for items in 4 equal installments with 0 interest and no fees. To Top Stories Global Watch, and we begin with a deadly attack on a church in Nigeria. Several gunmen storming a Catholic church, firing at worshipers inside and outside of the building. The attackers also setting off an explosive. At least 50 people killed. So far, no arrests, and no one has claimed responsibility. Officials in Bangladesh are now accusing a container depot officer of negligence after a deadly fire. Officials say containers of hydrogen peroxide were mislabeled, which resulted in a massive explosion when firefighters sprayed water instead of foam. At least 40 people were killed and hundreds remain missing. And now we head to the Vatican, where Pope Francis's summer plans are fueling rumors that he might be considering a resignation following in the footsteps of his predecessor. NBC's Ann Thompson has the story.
Pope Francis on Pentecost Sunday warning Catholics that focusing on the past risks making faith a museum piece. This morning, it is his present and future that has the rumor mill rolling. The Vatican announcing over the weekend the Pope will visit the Italian city of L'Aquila, home to Pope Saint Celestine V, who resigned in 1294, and more recently where Pope Benedict made a symbolic gesture in 2009, before announcing his own resignation 4 years later. Associated Press Vatican correspondent Nicole Winfield says some are reading meaning into the trip.
We now have Pope Francis also making a pilgrimage to L'Aquila. Maybe, perhaps, or maybe not, the Pope might have in the back of his mind that at some point he might also resign.
Francis will make the trip the day after he holds a formal assembly called a consistory to create 21 new cardinals. 16 are under the age of 80 and eligible to choose his successor, including American Cardinal designate Robert McElroy of San Diego. Francis will have chosen the vast majority of cardinal electors.
It could just be coincidence, but at the same time, you can't ignore the facts when they present themselves, but with a grain of salt, knowing that this is a pope, he can do whatever he wants.
Might that be another reason to step aside?
There's nothing insidious about these appointments. It's just business. It's logical and it's normal.
At 85, Francis endures physical challenges, also fueling speculation. He underwent colon surgery last summer and suffers from sciatica. He recently started using a wheelchair because of pain in his right knee.
I don't think being in the wheelchair has affected his papacy whatsoever.
What can dismiss all this speculation, some experts believe, is the presence of Francis' predecessor, Pope Emeritus Benedict.
I don't think Pope Francis is going to resign while Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI is still alive. It's confusing enough that people think that there are two popes.
Ann Thompson, NBC News.
And coming up, the new number for a suicide prevention hotline slated to launch next month. Why experts are worried some Americans might not get their calls answered. Stay with us. Back now with a life-saving tool aimed at helping Americans in crisis. A 3-digit number to call specifically for mental health emergencies. 988 is set to launch in July after a bipartisan law created the hotline in 2020. But it falls to states to fund the infrastructure. And as our Kate Snow reports, more than half of the states still haven't passed legislation to fund 988.
This is the only call center in all of South Carolina.
Correct.
There used to be 4 centers answering mental health calls in South Carolina.
I know you mentioned that there was no self-harm.
Now there's just one, Mental Health America in Greenville.
I hear how heavy it's weighing on you.
Jennifer Piver, who runs the center, says between 80 and 100 people contact them every day.
You know, a big part of what we do is just allow people to feel how they're feeling and to let them feel heard.
In July, a new crisis number, 988, is launching nationally to help with the growing mental health crisis. South Carolina is even putting the number on student IDs for 7th graders and up.
People are going to know it. And that's exciting to think that the stigma might wash away as well.
But they're also expecting an exponential increase in calls as soon as it goes live.
Are you ready for 988? No, we don't have the funds for operational staff yet.
In a room filled with stations, only a handful are being used. When 988 launches, calls they can't take here will be bounced to other parts of the country.
Our concern is that the youth won't wait to be transferred, or that someone who's done something to end their life, like taking the pills, that they would die because we can't get them routed to the emergency services that they need fast enough. Exactly.
Near Greenville, Becky Kay lost her son to suicide and now has a family member struggling with mental health issues. She and her family have called 911 about 30 times seeking help, and often, she says, it did more harm than good. One officer's response to her family member has stuck with her.
They said, son, you're going to hell. What you need to do is find a good church.
What did you think when you heard that?
You know how you feel when you get sick at your stomach and you feel it rising? I felt that and horrified.
The federal law leaves it up to states to figure out how to pay for 988. 30, including South Carolina, have not yet passed legislation. Only 19 have set aside money for 988, including Washington State.
We've been adding phone staff, chat staff, tech staff. We're currently recruiting for around 30 people. We've already hired, 20 plus people.
In South Carolina, they're still looking for a sponsor for legislation to help fund 988. What would you say to your lawmakers here in South Carolina?
Oh, for heaven's sake, please, if this was in your family, if you only knew the horrors, how desperately we do need that to save a life.
3 digits that can help do that.
Crisis line.
As long as someone's there to take the call.
And Kate Snow joins us now. Kate, there's been such a big conversation about getting people mental health services and access to help when they need it, especially after all these mass shootings. But if someone lives in one of those states that hasn't funded this, what happens if they dial 988?
So, there will be some people working, obviously. There are already call centers in most states. If there aren't enough people manning the phones, they're going to bounce to another state. If that state has enough resources and people and funded the positions, then they'll take the calls. But if they don't, the concern is that it bounces to another state and so on. And maybe nationally, we may not have enough people answering the phone. The problem is they just don't know, Gotti, how many people will dial 988 once it's live in July.
Such important information. Thanks so much, Kate. And when we come back, a return to Normandy. The World War II veterans back in France nearly 80 years after D-Day. Their message tonight to all of us here back at home. And finally tonight, it has been 78 years since D-Day. And some of the heroes who risked their lives that day are still traveling to the beaches of Normandy to celebrate their freedom and remember their fallen brothers in arms. NBC's Kerry Sanders takes us on that journey.
Flying along the French coast, American veterans.
That's amazing, really amazing.
Some who have not been back here since it looked and sounded like this. D-Day, 78 years ago today.
This is Robert St. John in the NBC newsroom in New York. This is a momentous hour in world history. This is the invasion of Hitler's Europe.
Today, a hero's welcome for the greatest generation.
We have Walter Stowe, U.S. Navy!
Walter Stowe, like so many at the time, doctored his birth certificate to join the military when he was 15 years old.
How do you feel to be here, sir?
Humbled and astonished and grateful.
Hitler's Nazi Germany had occupied France for 4 years. The massive D-Day invasion liberated France and eventually Europe. But the cost was steep.
I'll see you on the beach.
As depicted in the movie Saving Private Ryan. On this beach alone, codenamed Omaha, in just 24 hours, 3,000 casualties. Along the 50-mile coast, D-Day cost the U.S. and our allies more than 4,400 lives.
Salute! Present! Arms!
Almost twice the number of Americans who died in Afghanistan over a span of 20 years. What's it feel like putting your shoes back on this sand?
It's eerie.
It's eerie to be here?
It is. It is very eerie to be here.
Jake Larson waded to shore in water up to his chin.
I said, God, what am I doing here? What the hell? I can't see anybody to shoot at, but I ran. I weighed 120 pounds at 5'7", and I said, thank God the Germans aren't good at shooting toothpicks. Honestly, I was thinking that.
At 99, Jake now shares his message on, yes, TikTok.
You TikTok fans, you just keep me going.
Social media fame, allowing Jake to ensure those who died defeating Hitler are not forgotten.
I feel their presence right now. Their souls are right here, witnessing this.
And what are they telling us?
They're telling me, thank you, Jake. Thank you for coming and telling the world that this is where we were killed.
And if we call you a hero?
No, I'm not the hero. I'm here to tell you that the heroes are buried over here.
Here in Normandy, no matter age, everyone knows what America did for their freedom.
I think they're brave, courageous, and nice.
The message is protect our freedom. Honor these heroes that have given their life at a young age. Honor these people. Don't honor me. Give the message.
Jake Larson is among 8 World War II D-Day veterans who made their way here to pay their respects. They came with 21 other World War II veterans who were in different theaters. Here, thanks to the partnership of the Best Defense Foundation and Delta Airlines. And because of their advanced age, they say this is likely the last time they'll ever be here to pay their respects. Gotti?
Such a moving tribute. Thank you so much, Carrie. And thanks for watching Top Story. For Tom Llamas, I'm Gotti Schwartz in New York. Stay right there. More news is on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.